The Panther tank remains one of the most debated machines of World War II. Some claim it was the best tank of the entire war, while others argue it caused more harm than good for the German war effort. In this video, we'll show you why, and share some facts about the Panther you might not know. Let's begin. On paper, the Panther's frontal armor, powerful engine, and gun penetration made it a formidable tank, but when all its characteristics are considered together, it becomes clear that it failed to meet its true military purpose, to function effectively as a tank. Was this big cat really as great as it's often portrayed to be? The Panther is said to have been created as a direct response to the Soviet T-34 and KV-1 tanks, but in reality, it was already in development before they appeared. The sudden shock of facing those Soviet tanks only rushed the process. And when we say rushed, we mean it. The Panther went from the drawing board to production in record time, skipping much of the testing other German tanks underwent. The reason was simple. The T-34 and KV-1 completely outclassed early German tanks on the battlefield. German crews were terrified when their shells bounced harmlessly off Soviet armor. Panzer IIs and the IIIs with their short-barreled, low-caliber guns were no match for the new Soviet machines. Before the Panzer IV was upgraded with a 75mm gun, the only German weapon that could effectively destroy a T-34 or KV-1 was the 80mm flak cannon, and those were in short supply. So Germany desperately needed a new tanks and fast. Panther was designed as a completely new concept. Different from both the Panzer IV and the Tiger I, it was meant to be a highly mobile medium tank, but with much better armor and firepower than the Panzer IV, which it was supposed to replace. Because testing was incomplete and the Battle of Kursk was fast approaching, the Panther was declared ready, loaded onto trains, and sent straight to the Eastern Front. Unfortunately, most crews had only trained on the Panzer IV before being assigned to Panthers. They were barely familiar with the new tank. Only a few live-fire exercises were held, and taking notes or photos was forbidden. The Panther was top secret. The first Panthers arrived at the front, but the problems began immediately. 2 caught fire and burned down during unloading, and many more broke down before even reaching the battlefield. Their combat debut came during Operation Citadel, the massive German offensive that started the Battle of Kursk. On their first day, Panthers advancing toward Soviet positions encountered a deep, water-filled anti-tank ditch. Experienced crews avoided it, but others, confused by poor communication, tried to cross and hit mines or got stuck in the mud. 2 entire companies were disabled before the Soviets even opened fire. Soon after, Soviet artillery rained down on them. Later that day, the Panthers met enemy tanks for the first time, not T-34s or KV-1s, but American-made M3 Lees supplied to the Soviets through Lend-Lease. The Lees were no match for the Panther and were quickly destroyed, but the victory was hollow. On that first day, 18 Panthers were lost. By the second day, another 37 were knocked out, one even by friendly fire from a Panzer IV. By the end of the operation, over 200 Panthers had been lost, with 130 of those due to mechanical failures. So why did a tank that was supposed to be the best of the war fail so badly? To start, the Panther's side armor could be penetrated by a Soviet 14.5mm anti-tank rifle. The upper sides of the hull were just 40mm thick, sloped at 40 degrees, while the lower sides weren't sloped at all. Side skirts were later added to protect against rifle fire, but the Panther remained vulnerable to side attacks. Hitler insisted that armor be concentrated on the front. As a result, the frontal plate was 80mm thick and sloped at 55 degrees, while the turret front had 100mm at 10 degrees. Excellent protection from head-on attacks. But that heavy armor made the tank front heavy and unbalanced, causing frequent mechanical breakdowns. The Panther was notoriously unreliable. In early models, there were even signs of sabotage, screws and bits of metal found inside fuel tanks and transmissions, possibly placed there by forced laborers in German factories. The biggest unsolved issue was the final drive, the component that transferred engine power to the tracks. It was designed for a 30-ton vehicle, but the Panther weighed over 45 tons. Made from poor materials, it often failed after just 150 kilometers of use. For comparison, the Panther's fuel range was 260 kilometers, meaning the final drive usually broke before the tank even needed refueling. When it failed, the Panther was immobilized and extremely difficult to repair in the field. Skilled drivers could make the part last a bit longer, but it's hard to be gentle on the clutch while under fire. Another major issue was the engine, which often caught fire. Unburned fuel would accumulate in the exhaust system, ignite from the heat and start a fire. In early models, flames even shot out of the exhaust pipes, revealing the tank's position at night. The same engine worked fine in other German tanks, but the Panther's poor cooling system caused it to overheat at high speeds. About 60% of Panthers that broke down had to be abandoned and destroyed to prevent capture. Although classified as a medium tank, the Panther weighed 45 tons, as much as some heavy tanks. The Germans even called the Soviet IS-2 a super heavy tank, though it weighed about the same. Its 700 horsepower Maybach engine gave it impressive speed on paper, even better than the lighter T-34 in Sherman. But in practice, the suspension caused endless trouble. The overlapping road wheels used on other German tanks too provided smooth rides, but were a nightmare in muddy or icy conditions. Dirt and debris would freeze between the wheels, locking them solid. Crews had to clean them constantly and park on branches overnight to avoid freezing. The Soviets knew this and often attacked at dawn before the Panthers could move. In the field, only about half of all Panthers were operational at any given time. Out of 10 tanks, maybe 5 could start and reach the battle without breaking down. Now, to give credit where it's due, the Panther's 75mm gun was exceptional, arguably the best anti-tank gun Germany produced. It had a long 5-meter barrel and fired high-quality rounds at an incredible 935 meters per second. It could penetrate up to 150 millimeters of sloped armor from a kilometer away, enough to destroy almost any Allied tank. However, its ammunition storage was risky. Some variants kept 52 shells in a single side compartment, meaning a single hit there could be catastrophic. Most Panthers fought on the Eastern Front, but around 400 were sent to France after D-Day to battle British and American forces. In Normandy's tight hedgerows and villages, the Panther's long gun and wide hull were a liability. Designed for open field combat, it struggled in close quarters, where Shermans could easily outflank it. During the Battle of the Bulge, 5 Panthers were even disguised as American M10 tank destroyers to infiltrate Allied lines. The Germans welded fake plates, painted them in U.S. colors, and drove behind enemy lines, but Allied troops quickly became suspicious, and all 5 were destroyed. The Panther's turret was also used in defensive fortifications along the Atlantic Wall and the Siegfried Line, mounted on concrete bunkers where they proved far more effective. So, was the Panther a costly mistake for Germany? Probably. For the price of 5 Panthers, Germany could build 6 Panzer IVs. That might not sound like much, but across nearly 6,000 Panthers built, that difference meant over 7,000 Panzer IVs could have been produced instead. The Panzer IV was reliable, battle-tested and familiar to its crews. With its upgraded 75mm gun, it could handle most Allied tanks effectively. We'll never know how things might have gone if Germany had focused on improving the Panzer IV instead. But if they had, we wouldn't still be arguing online about whether the Panther was a masterpiece or a mistake.